Okay, this is John Harris. On the podcast today is, I like to call him the great Andy Benoit of Monday Morning Quarterback. You can read him all the time on SI.com. He's written some wonderful, wonderful articles. He's been a great friend of the Ike Taylor Show through the years. And Andy, we wanted to talk about Dallas Steelers, big game on this past Sunday. And moving ahead, Dallas with a big come-from-behind win. A lot of things have happened since then. I know your expertise, film study. If you read Andy on Monday Morning Quarterback, he breaks down the NFL like nobody else. Film study, explaining it so that a 3-year-old can understand it. Very detailed, very good writer. And I don't think you're 30 years old yet, are you? Are you 30 yet?
Yes, I am. I turned 30 back in May.
Wow.
Yeah. So if I were playing, we'd be talking about, maybe this would be kind of near the end for me. I'd have a reduced role at this stage of my career.
You're 30. You're an old man now, man. I mean, he was, we first started, he was like 24, 25. I was like, oh my goodness, this guy's going to be a star, and he is a star. And but what are your thoughts about the game, the Cowboys game? Let's focus, I guess, on the Cowboys first. A quarterback situation seemed to be resolved after that. But just what are your thoughts on Dallas this year?
I think they're a tremendous team, and I think that, as I'm sure a lot of your listeners know, John, I think it starts and ends with that offensive line. That front five is the best unit in the NFL. In fact, I would say it's probably not just the best O-line unit, but probably best unit, period. So better than the best linebacking core, better than the best secondary, or whatever group you can think of in terms of impact that they have on their team and their outcomes. That offensive line is extraordinary, and that's why Dak Prescott's been so good. And to his credit, he's taking great advantage of it. He's calm in the pocket. He's getting great pockets, and then we know the talent Ezekiel Elliott has, and he's really adjusted his run style to become a more patient runner as the season has progressed, and we're seeing that really pay off for him. He's letting those blocks develop, and he's going to get great blocks a lot of the time.
But what is it about this offensive line? I've been hearing so much about how good Dallas' offensive line is. Is it just line up these 5 big horses and let them go? Is it the way they work together in tandem? What is it that's just so unique and so good about these guys?
Well, I mean, in the simplest terms, it starts with having great players, of course, and that's going to be the case with any unit. But it's not just great players; it's where those players are located and then what scheme they're running. And so Dallas, they can run any type of scheme, but what they do best is outside zone scheme, which is basically everybody flows in one direction, and the idea is to cross along the defensive linemen and pin those linemen back inside. And you have to work up to the linebackers. You got to take the defensive linemen. It's a lot of on-the-flow, on-the-fly adjustments and rhythm. And it takes athletes to do that. And it starts at the center position. If your center can cross the nose tackle's face and pin him back inside, then the scheme has a chance to work. And if he doesn't, it's not going to work. And Travis Frederick's been the best in the NFL in this department. And then Zach Martin's exceptional at working up to the linebacker level, flowing up there. And then Tyron Smith is, without question, the best athlete at his position in the league, maybe the best athlete I've seen in the short time I've been watching film for 7 years or so. Best athlete I've seen at left tackle. And so you've got great athletes who can make adjusting blocks on the fly. And anytime you do that, an offensive zone scheme is going to look pretty good.
That last touchdown run, Ezekiel Elliott that clinched the game on Sunday. When you look at that shot from behind center, I don't know if I've ever seen it, but you didn't see anyone on the Steelers front line. Everyone was down or pushed out of the way. It was incredible just how big of a hole it was, and just the overall dominance on that play that you didn't see any Steelers linemen in the way. It was. I guess it capsulizes what you're saying about that offensive line play.
Yeah, I agree, John. And something else about that play that was interesting, because I really think the Artie Burns face mask foul was the key at the end of that game. because that put Dallas on the edge of field goal range, about 49, 50-yard field goal yardage at that point. And so what that did is the defensive players for Pittsburgh had to sell out against the run on the next snap, and they called a run blitz there. And the run blitz, the downside of every blitz has a risk, and the downside is if your blitz doesn't get home, or in this case, the blitz came in at angles that were unfavorable, then you're going to lose your second-level defenders, and, the hole's going to become gargantuan. So that was a great mix of a lot of things working against the Steelers. It all started with Dallas got the field position. 1 and 2 and 3 yard gains became important at that point because that changes the field goal. And so Pittsburgh had to sell out against the run, and it cost them. They didn't make the play on that one.
Okay, this huge, great debate, which I guess is no longer a debate in Dallas, who the starting quarterback is going to be. Obviously, it's going to be Dak Prescott for right now. Tony Romo even had a kind of a strange press conference yesterday. No questions were taken. He just gave a prepared statement. But the argument on the other end has been that Tony Romo could also be effective and has been effective in the past behind that offensive line, which I guess is where a lot of the debate was coming from. What are your thoughts on what you've seen from Dak Prescott so far this year and what you've seen from Tony Romo in the past? What are your thoughts on that? Could he just step in and everything would run just as smoothly or even better if he was the quarterback?
I think in theory, yes. Dak Prescott's having a tremendous season. He's not the reason they're winning games, though. He's a puzzle piece in the equation, and that's not to take anything at all away from him. Your listeners know how important that kind of QB can be because that was the case with Ben Roethlisberger in his first Super Bowl title, and it still brings home the title. So it's in the simplest terms, you don't substitute your quarterback in the middle of an 8-game winning streak. But if they had to do that, let's say Prescott, hopefully it doesn't happen. Let's say he got hurt and Romo had to come in. Right. I don't think the offense would miss much of a beat. In fact, they might get a little better at the deep and intermediate passing game because Romo's extremely good in the pre-snap phase. The pockets right now are outstanding. Throwing from the pocket's not hard to do there with that offensive line. What you lose with Prescott or what you have with him in the lineup is more dimension to your running game. Obviously, he can do read option a little bit. They don't do it with him a lot, but they have done it at important moments. Yeah. They can roll the pocket with him, something that Romo's always done well, but there's a different dimension with it with Prescott because he's a running threat as well. And then when you take those two actions and take them over to the run game, what they both do is control the last defensive lineman. They control that edge player. They can leave the edge guy unblocked because that edge guy has to account for Prescott's mobility, and that really helps Ezekiel Elliott on a lot of runs.
Now moving over to the Steelers. It's been a crazy week here. Cameron Haywood has been ruled out for the year, defensive end with an injury. There's been a lot of injuries with this team. It's become a common occurrence with the Steelers. But I'm stuck on the defense, Andy. With Ike, always been partial to him with the cornerback play. It's a different type of cornerback play with the Steelers now. It's a different type of defense with the Steelers now. Can you talk about what you're seeing now with Keith Butler now taking over for Dick LeBeau and just it's a different type of defense, maybe not as much of a traditional 3-4 as it's been in the past, but can you compare the two and what you think of this new version of the defense compared to the former version of the Steelers defense?
Well, yeah, I like the former one more just as a student of football. I'm sure Keith Butler did as well because what you had with for one, it's mostly a 4-3 defense. They do some 3-4 stuff. Anymore, every team does a lot of 4-3 stuff, gap penetration. The schemes have become so overlapped that I don't even look at 3-4-4-3 very much anymore. I just look at where the defensive tackles line up because that dictates the blocking assignments. But so that's one thing. But really what makes this defense, besides the fronts, what makes this defense different now is that they don't have Ike Taylor, they don't have Ryan Clark, and they don't have Troy Polamalu. So and those were three unique veteran guys that had been in the scheme for a long time. And when they did that, they felt comfortable disguising their coverages, matchup zone coverages. It was a very complex scheme. That has not been the case this season. In fact, this year it's been one of the simpler schemes in the league. They've done some blitzes the last few weeks. Butler loves to blitz. but they haven't. That has not been their foundation at all. And for a while there, they were the least often blitzing team in the NFL. So they've got young guys in the secondary. They feel like they have to protect them with a simpler scheme and hope that their front seven can execute. And the results there have been pretty mixed so far.
Oh my goodness, it's been I don't know. It's different. I mean, obviously you can't nothing stays the same. But this is a team that we used to talk about the years I thought that the Steelers wasted great defensive seasons. That even at the end, as Ike and them were winding it down, they still had defenses that were pretty highly ranked. This defense has been consistently ranked in the 20s, which is, when you just think about the Steelers, it's incredible. And it's this not like we're talking 5 or 10 years. This just kind of happened virtually overnight. This turnaround with the new, all it takes is 2 years. It doesn't take long for it to change.
Well, anytime you change a lot of players in one area of a team, and this is how injuries become a real factor. I think most teams in the league, aside from losing their quarterback and maybe their number one receiver, most teams in the league can survive any injury to any player. Even look at the Texans; they're still 6-3 without J.J. Watt. Yep. But if you start getting injuries to the same guys at the same positions, if you lose J.J. Watt and then the other defensive end and then his top backup, that's when you get problems. And so they've had to really overhaul the secondary. So, yeah, it's only been a few years, John, but it's a totally different defense because the 3 or 4 spots that they happen to change personnel in, those spots are all in the secondary, and that's going to change what they can do with their entire scheme then.
You mentioned the secondary, and I remember, that's why I have such great respect for you. I remember when the Steelers first signed Mike Mitchell, you were not on board with it. We talked about it. You felt, he was a downhill type guy. You just didn't feel like that's what they needed. And I tell you what, Andy, this guy has been, to me, with what they paid for him, a major disappointment.
You like Mike? You think you like Mike Mitchell's game right now?
No, I think he's been a major disappointment. I think.
Just a disappointment. Oh, I thought you said amazing at this point.
No. Because I remember when they first signed him, you were not. You gave that move a thumbs down. I remember we talked about it, and I wholeheartedly agree. He has been a major disappointment in the secondary, especially considering what they're paying for him.
Well, yeah, what I didn't like about the move, and I think it has come to fruition, is that he's always been a strong safety, and where he was at his best in Carolina was when he was attacking downhill by design in the scheme. Yeah. So even if he wasn't playing strong safety at times per se, that scheme still allowed for him to attack downhill. He was not the last line of defense. He was not the middle field defender. Right. That's what they asked him to be in Pittsburgh, and that's really not his game. And what we are seeing is when he does have to attack downhill, and the best example was the Mike Wallace 95-yard touchdown a few weeks ago.
Oh my God!
When he's attacking downhill, he's coming from further out in space, and it's trying to go blow somebody up from 5 yards away is one thing. Trying to go blow someone up from 15 yards away, that's a whole different task, and that does not fit his skill set. So, and coverage-wise, his awareness, it's okay, but it's not great. He's certainly not Ryan Clark. So I never thought he was a great scheme fit for what they want to do. He's had a tough year. I don't think he's a horrendous player, but I think the feeling around that building is, he's all right, but he's not what we were hoping, and he's not quite what he thinks he is.
I know I was always branded an Ike Taylor homer, and I used to, on the show, we used to always talk a lot about it, whatever. But I used to tell the listeners, I said, you guys are going to, in a few years, you guys are going to really realize, it won't be until a few years till you really realize what you had here. I remember one year towards the end, maybe it was 2011, maybe even 12, and the defense was still pretty highly ranked. And I remember one of the local columnists wrote, well, yeah, they're number one, but they don't get any turnovers. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And believe me, people would take a number one defense right now with no turnover. This team does not get sacks. This team does not get turnovers, and I don't think it's prolific as the offense may be. I don't think it's going to be able to overcome this defense. How do you see this the rest of the year playing out for the Steelers?
Well, I'm probably a little more optimistic than you. I've been optimistic about them all year long, and so far it hasn't necessarily paid off, I guess. But and Hayward being out, that will hurt them. But it's a young defense, and so it becomes the question is, can those young guys improve during the course of the season? Is Artie Burns going to be better in the last month of the season than he has been? Is Sean Davis going to be more reliable? And we don't know the answer to that. That's just anybody's guess at this point. The other thing that has to be in the equation is Shazier needs to be on the field, and if he's not, then I think the defense will have a lot of trouble. But it is a different unit when he's out there. He is one of the 7 or 8 true difference-making talents in the NFL on the defensive side. So I think they have some pieces. I think they're all right, and they're not good at edge rusher though, and or at least they're not dynamic at edge rusher, and they're young in the secondary. That's a bad combination to have. So something has to change there, and the James Harrison's not going to have a fountain of youth strike him all of a sudden. As well as he's played. They don't have an edge bender at this point. So it comes down to that secondary getting better and better enough to where they feel they can scheme pressure up front again.
This team was some people's preseason pick to go in the Super Bowl. I don't know how you saw them. But now let's look at a team that everybody says is going to go to the Super Bowl, New England. Where do you represent the AFC? Do you see them as the class? Do you see them as the class? Have they supplanted Denver, or do you still see Denver because of the experience being the team to beat down the stretch in the AFC, or do you see it as New England?
At this point, I see it as New England. New England is loaded, and really what the thing that people don't talk about with them is Tom Brady is an improving quarterback still. He's a better quarterback now than he was at 29 years old, and it's become such an intellectual position there in New England. They do so much winning through formations and quick route designs, and just by where they line their guys up, they define the throws for Brady. And so it doesn't matter how old he is because it's not about his physical tools. It's about him executing mentally. That's a tough offense to play against, and that's a very underrated defense. That's a bend but don't break defense, and they do a lot of man coverage. They've been consistent from week to week. So I think New England's the best team in the. In fact, I think they're the best team in the entire NFL right now.
Well, I know you're not a big prediction guy, but I want to ask you to give a prediction. You like New England? You like Dallas in the NFC? Who do you like? You like Seattle?
I think I like Seattle in the longer haul picture. Russell Wilson has become a much better pocket passer, and I was real encouraged with what he did the other night because now his ankle looks healthy. He's not even wearing the ankle brace anymore. Yeah. And we saw him running around against New England. Yeah. And yet he, in the running around approach, he did not come to rely on that. The problem with Russell Wilson's always been, he runs around, he makes plays, but he's taking plays off the table when he does that too, because there's a lot of opportunities within the design of the play that aren't getting executed. You don't watch the film and say that about him very much anymore. He's much, I mean, you're going to say that sometimes because he's short and so he doesn't always see the field great. But for the most part, he's become a very sharp pocket passer. So if he's that kind of player, in fact, it was against your guys' team last year where he really blossomed into that, and it has since then stuck. If he becomes a pocket passer who also has this run ability and he learns to balance that effectively, and I think he's on that track, that's an incredibly difficult offense to play against, especially when you factor in Jimmy Graham and his ascension in this scheme and him getting healthier. So I love that offense's potential right now. And then defensively, we know what they are, and if they're all healthy at the right time, that's defense, you're not going to gain many yards against it. So I think Seattle has the best long-term outlook in the NFC. In fact, I don't think it's even that. I don't want to say it's not close because Dallas has played well. I think Atlanta's a very good team. But I am very confident saying Seattle's the best team in the NFC. Or at least long-term, they'll be the best team in the NFC this season.
Great stuff as always from the great Andy Benoit, the Monday Morning Quarterback. Check him out, SI.com. Peter King made a very, very astute hire when he brought him in. Nobody breaks it down, breaks the NFL down the way Andy Benoit does. Andy, thank you so much. We're going to get you on. We're going to get you on another time with Ike. You guys can chop it up a little bit. Just want to thank you so much for giving us some time. Andy, again, Andy Benoit, Monday Morning Quarterback. Thank you so much. And join me, John Harris, for next week's podcast on the Air Network. Everybody, take it easy.